Okay, it's going live here. Hang on. Just want to confirm the connection. Okay, we should be live. Yep, there we are. Let me turn down the volume here so I don't have any feedback on the monitor. They get all fancy. I call my phone the monitor, which it really is. So we're going to hit record. I'm going to change the view here a little bit. And there we go. Okay, we are live. So welcome in. Welcome into Sunday morning, March 26, 2023 with Unity Prosperity Ocean International, where we meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Central Time here on Facebook Live. We record it. It's uploaded to YouTube, by the way. I don't know if you've been opening the emails. We get quite a few opens, but I also put the link to the YouTube broadcast in there for people that more and more people are going over there. So I'm not streaming live to YouTube, but it's up there within a couple hours of wrapping up today. So we're going to continue on with our series. What I want to do, though, is turn it over to Tené to open with our daily word this morning. Come on out, Tené, and share.
Good morning, everybody. Joy is the word of the day. I draw from my wellspring of joy. There are so many ways to express joy. I may speak words of praise that bring the awareness of even more blessings to mind. I may take joyful action, my every step aglow with the light of God, enlivening all that I do. I celebrate the playful joy of every child, especially the child within me. I experience the same happiness whether I am in the heart of a busy city or in the stillness of nature. And then there is the quiet joy of just being, the richest joy of all. I rediscover my joy by taking slow, deep breaths, tapping into my wellspring of well-being that never runs out. I feel its energetic flow spilling over into my heart and life. What joy to be a spiritual being, a precious child of God. And from the book and chapter, Luke chapter 2, verse 10, but the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for see, I am bringing you good news of great joy for all the people." Amen.
Amen. Thank you for sharing that, Tené. Appreciate that. All right, let's dive in. We're in week number 3 of this series. I'm calling today's talk Halfway Across the Bridge. And we're talking about moving from where we are to where we want to be. That's part of it. That's part of the theme of Unity Prosperity Ocean International. But it's also something that we look at in Lent, right? We get stuck in a way of being. We get stuck in a way of thinking. And while often when I'm sharing these messages, I'm inviting you to talk about your hopes and wishes and dreams and desires and of aspirations, we tend to think of those physical things that we want to create in our lives, and that's fine. It works either way, but I want you to also consider the intangible things, the intangible aspects of our divine nature and our divine unfoldment and the inherent powers that we have and perhaps that we've neglected, faith, strength, wisdom, and love, our imagination, understanding and will, order, zeal, renunciation, and life. And think about thanksgiving and forgiveness. All these things we can cultivate and we can develop to increase their capacity to be more powerful in our lives, to move us along this positive path for spiritual living and support us along our way here. And so keep in mind, as I talk about this, we're going to share a lot today, again, from The Alchemist, because I started quoting from there last week. But this whole month, we're exploring how to manage that gap that that chasm, that ravine between incubation, the incubation of our God-given inspired aspirations and our divinely directed dreams, to bridge that gap from the invisible world of non-form to the actual tangible fruition of them. And again, whether it's something physical we want to move in, or the intangible aspects of maybe more of an experience of divine love, or divine wisdom, and really connecting with intuition and answers and that kind of thing. Because 2 Sundays ago and today and next Sunday, it's really all about building, actually revealing that bridge over that gap. And I'm going to begin this Sunday where we left off last time, as I mentioned, bridging that gap, so to speak, between our 2 weeks, between each week, really. Last time I shared a couple of passages from the book, The Alchemist, a fable about following your dream. It's a very popular book. It was written in the late 80s by a Brazilian author, and Paulo Coelho, or Paul, I always mess that up for some reason. But anyway, it's about a shepherd boy who has a dream, a really, really big dream, which he reluctantly decides to pursue. And in that pursuit, he definitely has to bridge a gap. Not just a gap, we could call that a deep ravine. So I ended that last talk last Sunday with a passage in which the young shepherd has finally met the alchemist, someone he's been looking for throughout the book, because he believes the alchemist will have the answers to how he can find his dream. And they're having a conversation. The boy is trying to decide if he should continue to go after his dream. At that point, it's looking pretty impossible, and it's gotten difficult. Now, have you ever felt that way? I know I have. Here's the passage that we ended on last week. My heart is afraid it will have to suffer, the boy told the alchemist one night as they looked up to the moonless sky. Tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. Every second of the search is an encounter with God, the boy told his heart. When I have been truly searching for my treasure, every day has been luminous, because I've known that every hour was part of the dream that I would find it. When I have been truly searching for my treasure, I've discovered things along the way that I never would have seen had I not had the courage to try things that seemed impossible for a shepherd to achieve. And I want to read on a bit now from that place, because it will take us to our work today. I thought about providing, milk and cookies for this one, but the shipping of milk and keeping it fresh and keeping it cold, for the story time portion, that was kind of challenging. And I didn't want you to take a nap after it. So I decided against it. Hopefully you're okay with that, or you can get up and feel free to get your own milk and cookies. That would be fine too. But we're going to move into a little bit more of the story time here. So here we go. So his heart was quiet for an afternoon. That night, the boy slept deeply. And when he awoke, his heart began to tell him things that came from the soul of the world. Those were with us. If you were here last time, what would we say this is? The soul of the world, that heart telling him things. That's the intuition, of course. And you remember what we called intuition? The voice that loves me. Okay, back to the story. That night, the boy slept deeply. And when he awoke, his heart began to tell him things that came from the soul of the world. It said that all people who are happy have God within them. Now, I would simply edit that to say all people who are happy know they have God within them. And that happiness could be found in a grain of sand from the desert, because a grain of sand is a moment of creation. Everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits him, his heart said. We, people's hearts, seldom say much about those treasures because people no longer want to go in search of them. We speak of them only to children. Later, we simply let life proceed in its own direction toward its own fate. But unfortunately, very few follow the path laid out for them, the path to their personal legends. Now, that's the author's term for God-inspired aspirations and divinely directed dreams. And to happiness. Most people see the world as a threatening place. And because they do, the world turns out indeed to be a threatening place. So we, their hearts, speak more and more softly. We never stop speaking out, but we begin to hope that our words won't be heard. We don't want people to suffer because they don't follow their hearts. Why don't people's hearts tell them to continue to follow their dreams? The boy asked the alchemist. Because that's what makes a heart suffer most. And the hearts don't like to suffer. From then on, the boy understood his heart. He asked it, please, never to stop speaking to him. He asked that when he wandered far from his dream, that his heart pressed him and sound the alarm. The boy swore that every time he heard the alarm, he would heed its message. That night, he told of this, all of this, to the alchemist. And the alchemist understood that the boy's heart had returned to the soul of the world. So, what should I do now? The boy asked. And that is where we'll leave the story for today, picking up there next week. So, what should I do now? So, today we're going to mine some of the gold contained in what I just read. Last time we looked at two spiritual tools to keep the bridge revealing itself at least two steps ahead of us. One was cultivating the open moment. Remember, we talked about looking for the keys, which means the open moment means to open the tiniest crack in the wall that stands between I can't have this dream and here are all the reasons why, and the actual experience of the dream by believing that it just might actually be possible, because with God, all things are possible. Let's affirm that and say that together. Say it with me, will you? With God, all things are possible. And now, just hold in mind, have your God-inspired aspiration or your divinely directed dream in mind. Hold it there for a moment and say it again. With God, this is possible. With God, this is possible. And the second spiritual tool I shared was to listen to our intuition, the voice that loves us, knowing that it will never steer us wrong. This is the voice of the heart the alchemist was talking about. Now, these tools take you partially across the bridge, but it still may feel like you are hanging out in the gap. And that's how the little shepherd boy felt in the passage I just read. Now, I do understand that can be a very scary and even discouraging place to be. One of the reasons, perhaps, that you haven't scurried fully across the bridge to the other side, like Indiana Jones did in the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, is that you see a big old problem, an obstacle, an obstruction in front of you. And you don't know how to go around. You don't know how to go under it or through it. So there you just hang in the gap, stuck. Can anyone relate to that situation in their life right now? I love the piece in Keep a True Lent this morning about overcoming it. It's kind of speaking to this. So here's our spiritual tool for today. The realization that the problem is never the problem. This is the concept we have discussed at length here. So I'm hoping you know the answer to this question. If the problem is never the problem, then what is the problem? If the problem is never the problem, then what is the problem? Well, the problem is the way that I'm thinking about the problem, the way you're thinking about the problem. That's what the problem is. So, problem, what problem? There isn't one. But our belief that there is one can absolutely keep us from successfully walking across the bridge to the achievement of our personal legend, our dream, our aspiration. Hear these words of wisdom, first by Ernest Holmes, then from Charles Fillmore. In The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes wrote, "We must return the way we came as little children who know that life is good and to be trusted. We are to approach our problems as though they were not. Approaching them in this manner, they will vanish." And in Talks on Truth, Charles Fillmore says, "It does not require labored arguments or hard thinking to see how easily the problems of life would be made orderly and divine if men and women would let the Lord into their mind. Jesus said that the yoke was easy and the burden light. He was victor over all the hard conditions to which men and women think themselves yoked. By annulling them and preaching boldly in the face of an adverse theology, that it was the prerogative of the Son of Man to blot these errors from the world of mankind." So the real issue for us, and today's spiritual tool for helping us reveal another leg of the bridge, is to see the problem in a completely different light. That is what the conversation the little boy had with the alchemist was about, and what his heart told him. And I want to share with you another story this morning, a story that you are most likely familiar with. I know I've shared it before, and we've talked about it in some of our prosperity classes, but one in which you may have missed a key, maybe a very subtle part of the message in the story, as I did the first 100 or so times that I heard it growing up in church and growing up in religion classes throughout grade school. So here it is. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, no, that's a different story. Wrong story. A long time ago, the Israelites and the Philistines were fighting a war, a messy war. On a particular field of battle, there was a Philistine by the name of Goliath of Gath, who was a giant among a bunch of really, really big guys. Twice a day, at dawn and at dusk, Goliath would step out between the two armies and shout to the Israelites, "Let's do this war a different way. One of you step forward and fight me to the death, and the people of the man who loses will become the slaves of the people of the man who wins." Now, you know the story, right? What happens in this story? David, the shepherd boy, the small shepherd boy, with his slingshot, slays the giant, right? but it's so much richer than that. Whenever Goliath would make his haunting offer, the Israelites scattered. I mean, they ran off to the hills, hidden caves, wherever they could, because no one wanted to fight this giant. Now, Jesse had 4 sons, and the 3 eldest were soldiers. One day he sent his youngest son, David, to take some food to his brothers. He arrived at the front just in time to hear one of Goliath's rants. And when the terrified soldiers ran away, David ran with them. Sometime later, David is trying to find his scattered brothers. And in this search, he hears the details of what has been going on. He learns that at least twice a day for 40 days, Goliath has been making this same proposition. Now, let's pause the story for a moment. What is significant about this? 40 days. 40 days symbolically is all the time it takes for transformation. That's what we're doing here during this season of Lent, working on our transformation. Now, King Saul really wants this war to be over. So to encourage one of his soldiers to step up, he sweetens the pot, so to speak. He makes it very, very sweet indeed. He promises that whatever soldier will fight Goliath and obviously win, not only will see great riches, not only will he nor anyone in his family ever be taxed again, but the real deal sweetener, he's going to get a whole bunch of land too, but the real sweetener is he will get the hand of the king's beautiful daughter, the princess, in marriage. And it's rumored that she's so beautiful, she bathes in perfume. Now, David thinks this all sounds pretty good. It sounded really good to him. This land, the money, the princess. Oh my God. So when he finally finds his brothers, he's talking to them about this and how he might like to go for it. Not only would he save the Israelites, but what a deal for him. Pretty sweet. Now, remember, he was the littlest, youngest, scrawniest brother that wasn't even old enough to go into battle with his older brothers. Their reaction was, as we might expect, are you crazy? Have you seen the size of that guy? And you just a scrawny shepherd? You're not even a soldier. And there it is, thinking the problem is the problem. And granted, it looks like a big and very, very, very scary problem. And very much like a problem with consequences, the consequences being losing and being pretty severe. So you have a dream and you've taken your leap of faith and stepped out, and then you've walked somewhat across the bridge by cultivating the open moment and by listening to the voice that loves you, your intuition. And now you're here, perhaps faced with Goliath. Now what? What to do? What to do? Quick run back to the safe side? That's a terror barrier, isn't it? You could run back to the safe side. Yeah, you could. But that is what makes a heart suffer most, and hearts don't like to suffer. We learn from the alchemist. Remember, everyone on earth has a treasure that awaits him or her. We have to go get it. We have to bridge the gap to experience it. So we can take a clue from David and change our perception of the problem, right? The problem is not the problem. In fact, it isn't even an obstacle. Instead, it is the way to our dreams. Were it not for Goliath, David would not have this opportunity. So he turned his entire attention away from Goliath and onto the dream, the riches, the no taxes, the princess, the victory. In other words, he focused on his vision, his intention, his dream, not what was standing in front of him. So this is our work as we stand midway on the bridge here, talking about this in our series here. We must keep our eye on the prize, so to speak. Fortified with his dream in his heart and in his mind, he pressed forward. He listened to his intuition, not to put on all the armor the king wanted them to wear. The king gave him, here, pull all of this on. He said, no, that's going to weigh me down. I'm not going to do that. He simply picked up 5 smooth stones. He put one in his sling, and with one perfect shot, he fell. He felled the giant. That was it. The obstacle removed, the way cleared. Now, everyone in that camp had the same opportunity, right? But as we learned in The Alchemist, very few follow the path laid out for them, the path to their personal legends and to happiness. Most people see the world as a threatening place. And because they do, the world turns out indeed to be a threatening place. But not you. And any of you, looking in or being here right now, listening together here, or those of you listening to the broadcast later, you're willing, and you can be willing to walk across the bridge, and you are willing to face whatever may seem like a problem, an obstacle, and perceive it differently. It is, in fact, the way to your God-inspired aspirations, your divinely directed dreams, your divinely ordained will to experience the life you would love to live. So, are you ready to continue the journey? Today, we've had 2 shepherd boys give us the same message. To dive deep into your internal resources, to know that God is with you, to see the problem not as a problem, not as an obstacle, but rather as a way to your dream, and to keep your attention, your focus always on the dream. And once again, remember, as the alchemist told the little boy, every second of the journey is an encounter with God. Remember, this is all to you now, really. Now, I'll be back here next week to wrap up this series. But what will you be doing in between? In fact, this might be a good point as we near the end of the first quarter of 2023 to really evaluate what you have been doing in between all the Sunday messages that I've been delivering. Are you coming on Sunday, just going through the church and receiving some spiritual nourishment? That's okay. But are you going a step further as you've been invited to do so often over and over again in all my messages over the years? So we want to continue to support you in all of that. I want to just close and with a reading here that's from a couple of days ago, but it's in my Science of Mind 365 that I start my morning meditation with prayer with every day. And I think it's really appropriate here. It's a piece titled Abundant Living, because that's really what we're talking about. Living an abundant life, abundant living. So allow these words to be the meditation of your heart, or if you want to close your eyes, that's fine. But it's from Dr. Ernest Holmes. It's titled Abundant Living. And he says, why go through life as though it were something to be endured, as though there were not enough good or joy to go around? Are we not always limiting the possibility of love and affection, of appreciation, and of the common everyday good things of life? If we really are in union with a divine source, then there should come a feeling of abundance in everything we do, and an abundance of friendship, of self-expression, of everything. The abundant life contains all things, whether we call them big or little. We should sense the flow into our consciousness of the divine intelligence, a feeling that the creative imagination of the whole universe is centered in us and flowing through us. We should consciously practice this more abundant life, not necessarily for any specific thing or good we desire, but for the realization of the all good flowing through everything and everyone. Attuning our consciousness to this divine abundance, automatically we find a betterment in everything we do, a broader and deeper experience, a higher realization, a greater good. Let us pray and affirm. Today, I expect a more abundant life. I am keeping my whole mind and thought and expectation open to new experiences, to happier events, to a more complete self-expression. Giving out more love, I expect greater love in return. Sharing with others whatever good things I have, I expect all life to share with me the good that it possesses. Seeing beauty everywhere, I expect a revelation of still more beauty. Seeing joy in everything, I expect more laughter. More deeply sensing the divine tranquility in which all things exist, I expect a deeper consciousness of peace and security. Through it all, I feel that I am in the embrace of a warm, loving presence, forever seeking an outlet through me. And from the book of Psalms, 145, number 16, thou openest thy hand and satisfieth the desire of every living thing. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. All right, that's going to wrap up the message for today. Let me stop the